Rats are amazing pets. I think rats are a strong contender for the best small mammal pet because they're basically tiny dog monkeys that will show you as much love as you give them. Unfortunately, they're also delicious if you're a snake, or desperate, or maybe just curious. I'm not gonna judge. Back here. If you think discussing the nature of life in the food chain while looking at cute footage of rats will bother you, just mute this and put some music on instead while you enjoy the show, because they're adorable. Otherwise, buckle up. This is a tough conversation, but one I think worth having. Nature is a cycle of consumption. Everything is eating everything else, all the time, constantly. None of us can escape it. We are all cogs in this big organic machine, and it's pretty amazing. However, as human beings with a greater awareness of our place in the world, we often feel an ethical responsibility for other life. This comes into play when breeding any animals, but especially when breeding animals as both pets and feeders. I've been keeping rats as pets far longer than I've been keeping snakes. I had a lot of different pets growing up, but the rats made a huge impact on me. Unlike hamsters and most other small mammal pets that seem to tolerate human interaction, rats will seek it. They are clever animals that thrive with mental stimulation, and pet rat keepers and breeders are eager to show cages full of enrichment that their rats use and appreciate. But breeding rats as feeders for other animals is a different story. Dynamics change. There are challenges to overcome. Let's start by talking about caging, since I'm sure you've noticed by now that my rats are in pet-style cages rather than a rack. If you're producing animals in large numbers to meet a demand, fleece and toys are not going to be part of the equation. Racks help speed up production and keep costs low, important parts of any business. If you're producing hundreds or thousands of rodents, the only commercially viable way to do that is by using racks. I use pet cages because I'm breeding a small number of rats to sell locally as pets, and to supplement my frozen rodent orders. Shout out to Cold Blooded Cafe. These cages are what were available to me, but also I don't like most rat breeding racks on the market today. I have ideas floating in my head for a new commercial rat breeding cage that I think could be pretty cool, and useful to both pet rat breeders and feeder breeders, but I'll talk about that more someday in the future. Then there's the emotional factor. If you love all animals and you're an empathetic person, the idea of directly causing the death of another creature can be tough to deal with. When you raise feeders, you're taking an active part in the food chain. I totally respect that some people aren't able to do this. After all, if you eat steak, you generally don't pet the cow beforehand. Though personally I believe if you choose to eat meat, you should understand and appreciate how it gets to your plate. I grew up in the country where hunting and fishing were always part of the landscape, and that creates a much different relationship with animals than you experience if all you know is city life and grocery stores. Learning how to ethically obtain wild protein definitely helped me handle the emotional side of culling feeders, but it's still the hardest thing I do. One very big difference between breeding pets and breeding feeders is what you do when an animal is sick. Let's say you have a breeder female rat that starts to develop a mammary tumor. You love this rat, she's been a great mother to lots of litters, and you're bummed. If you're primarily a pet keeper, you're probably going to take the rat to the vet for a potentially expensive surgery. She'll live longer as a beloved pet. If you're breeding feeders, the animal is euthanized, either right away, or if you're really attached, when the tumor starts to reduce the quality of the rat's life. That sounds harsh, but it has to be that way, otherwise it doesn't make financial sense to breed rats at all. Any profit or savings would be eaten by the vet bills. Animal farmers of all types have to make these kinds of decisions on a regular basis, and it's hard. The last thing I want to talk about is quality of life, and there are a couple levels to this. Obviously, rats kept by competent pet keepers have a higher quality of life, just the same as a family cow on a small farm has a higher quality of life than a cow at a large-scale milk production facility. Anytime animals are kept in large numbers for a purpose, the quality of life of each individual is going to decrease. As a society of human beings, we haven't really figured out how to fix this problem yet, but I'm sure it's going to have something to do with money. This lower quality of life is seen as a necessary evil for now, but if more people want that to change, it eventually will. But we still need to accept the current reality. I admit I have trouble with that sometimes, but the radical actions of organizations like PETA and the Humane Society of the United States are definitely not helping either, and we need to be careful how we approach this topic to not give them more power. But that's a rant for another day. I just wanted to make sure people knew that I wasn't on that side. If we're looking at rats bred to feed snakes, the healthier the rodent is, the healthier your snake is going to be, logically. Commercial rodent breeders have systems that allow them to keep their animals clean, warm, fed, and hydrated, the basics of survival. They are generally kept on bedding in a plastic tub that pulls out of a rack, usually with nothing else in the tub itself, except other rats. Water and food are accessible from above. They are fed a commercial rodent breeder diet, with Missouri being a popular choice. The feeder rodents produced this way are healthy, but improvements can be made. An easy one is food supplementing. While commercial diets are considered complete with all necessary nutrients, they don't contain the same kind of diversity found in nature. Occasionally adding fresh produce and quality grains will make your rodents healthier and give them mental stimulation too. Life in an empty tub is incredibly boring for an animal that constantly seeks new experiences, so anything you can do to stimulate their brains is going to result in a healthier feeder. Also, if you raise your own feeders, you can gut-load them the same way feeder insects are gut-loaded before being fed to lizards. I never hear anyone else talk about that when it comes to rodents, but I think it could make a difference. My biggest gripe with commercial racks is the same for both snakes and rodents: a lack of height. A rat's body is made to climb and balance and maneuver its environment. When you keep rats in a tub, a drawer, you're denying them the use of their bodies, and they're not going to develop the same kind of strength and muscle as a rat that's able to climb. That's extra muscle that can benefit your snakes. Just food for thought. Overall, it makes me feel better breeding rats when I know that I've given them the best lives that I feel I can, even if the reason for their life is to ultimately feed another. This was a heavy one, and something that's been on my mind for a while. These are my thoughts and opinions. I don't expect everyone to agree, but please hit like, dislike, whatever your feelings are. Leave me a comment with your thoughts. Check my links in the description, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Happy Vlogstice! I'll see you in the next one. Or maybe just curious. I'm not gonna judge. Come back here.